Hey everybody, 2017 is coming to a close, and that means it's time to take a look back at some of the best figures of the year. I am doing a few lists this time. I'm doing Marvel Legends, Black Series, and then an overall top 10. And today we're kicking things off with Marvel Legends. Now we're going to lay down some ground rules here. The figures had to be released in 2017, and they have to be figures that I bought. I don't care if a figure is good, but not good enough for me to buy. That means it's certainly not going to end up on this list. So these are figures that I have in my collection that I think are worthy of this top 10 list, and we're also going to do a favorite Build-A-Figure as well. I don't think they really are fair to throw those in with other standard figures, since BAFs get a lot more sculpt and tooling in most cases. So we're going to kick things off with number 10, and that is going to be the X-Men Wave Colossus figure. Now, I know a lot of folks took issue with this figure because of the fact he's not the classic figure, but I love the current costume, or that particular costume. He's humongous in terms of a regular figure, and then he comes with a bearded head. You cannot go wrong with a bearded head. Colossus is among my favorite Marvel characters. He is my favorite non-Wolverine X-Man, so I'm very biased in that regard. And I had to put him on the list. He is just a favorite for me. I was really happy to get that figure, and he's an excellent addition to my X-Men shelf for Marvel Legends. Coming in at number 9, we have got the Guardians of the Galaxy 2 Wave Adam Warlock figure. This one took me a little thinking to figure out if I really wanted to put him on the list, because again, just like Colossus, he is not the classic costume that I think of when I think of Adam Warlock. I think back to Infinity War Adam Warlock, that 90s look, and while he doesn't have that look, this figure is really, really nice. I love pretty much everything about him, even the costume he's wearing. He has the extra Magus head, he has the effect pieces that actually work and look good with the figure. They're not just random bubbles that happen to clip onto a character's arm. These kind of feel like they go with Adam Warlock. And again, another favorite character of mine that I have loved for years and years, so I couldn't not put him on my list at number 9. Moving on to number 8 is another figure that I wasn't sure I was really going to put on this list, and then I took a step back and thought, yeah, I really do like this figure now that I've had a lot more time to really mess around with him and add a few drops of glue in certain places. So number 8 goes to the X-Men Wave 90s era Jim Lee style Cyclops. This character is obviously a favorite. If you like X-Men, you've got to like Cyclops in some way. He is as core to the team as any other character possibly could be, and I think they really did execute this figure really, really well, except for the armbands and the leg bands. But like I said, a little drop of glue is all you really need, and the problem that I really had with him was fixed in about 5 seconds. So that aside, I think he is an excellent addition to the X-Men roster. The head sculpt on this guy is fantastic. The only thing they ever could have done would be to add a blast effect for him, but the logistics of that are still kind of wonky. There are some third-party folks out there that make them, and they're still kind of hard to use, so I can understand why Hasbro didn't, but even without it, I love the 90s era X-Men, so Cyclops had to appear on my list. Number 7, this is a figure that I was looking forward to as soon as I heard him announced. That would be the Thor Wave Ares figure. Now obviously everybody knows this guy is a reissue of the old Build-A-Figure from that old Walmart exclusive wave from years back, and that was during a time when I never even collected Legends to begin with, so I certainly never got him, and I was never going to pay the crazy prices that he went for on the aftermarket. This guy comes with an extra accessory, different paint, and I think all around he looks tremendously better than the Build-A-Figure, despite the fact that he is, of course, a Build-A-Figure. He's humongous. He is a cool character. I really, really dig the Ares character and what they did with that particular interpretation of him back in the comics when I still read them actively. So I was definitely going to get him, and he met and exceeded my expectations for sure, so he was a no-brainer to put on my top 10 list. Number 6, we have got the HasCon exclusive Weapon X Deadpool. I have said a number of times at this point that I don't really care for Deadpool in the way that most folks seem to care about Deadpool. Just not for me. That type of character doesn't really do it for me, but I do like Deadpool in a general sense, and I have followed Deadpool since the 80s when he was released out in the New Mutants books, and subsequently went on into the X-Force and then the Cable books. So I've been a big follower of Deadpool's story for a long time, and this interpretation of Deadpool in this particular costume is my preferred look. Something about this gray really speaks to me, and it's a solid figure too. Of course, he was an exclusive, so a lot of folks missed out on him because he sold out really quick when he went up for sale online. But he is, I believe, coming out in another wave at some point, from what I've heard. Don't quote me on that. But he's a great figure, comes with a lot of extra accessories. The whole Deadpool shtick is involved. So if you were a Deadpool fan, you probably agree with me that he belongs on a top 10 list, and I've got him right around the middle for number 6. Number 5 on the list goes to a figure and a character that I never expected I was really going to care about until I actually got him in hand. That is going to be the really early figure in the year from the Spider-Man wave, Spider-Man 2099. This is a figure that utilizes one of the newer bodies, the one that Sunfire uses. It's the same body as that. He has an awesome costume. He doesn't come with any accessories, which I've mentioned before is a bit of a bummer, but everything about the aesthetics of this figure and articulation and sculpt really does it for me, and I have never really cared about Spider-Man 2099. I have no idea why he even looks the way he does now, but I absolutely love this figure. I don't have a ton of Spider-Men in my collection. I'm not a humongous Spider-Man fan, but this is one that has a center stage on my Marvel Legends shelf for now. Number 4, we're going back to the Guardians of the Galaxy wave, and we are going to take a look at Yondu. This figure is one that I never expected to care about. I have long held the regard that I do not buy movie figures, and this figure really changed that for me because I started buying movie and then Netflix figures when they started coming out. The head sculpt here is absolutely amazing. Everything they did with this figure is just top-notch, excellent stuff, especially making him, you know, sculpted in the way that he wants to hold that jacket back to let the arrow come out, the way they dealt with the arrow and allowing it to kind of move in the air in front of the figure. Everything about it is great. I never really thought I would need a Michael Rooker figure on my shelf, but when I got my hands on Yondu, everything changed. Number 3 is going to Angela. So going back to Guardians waves again, and this figure is again one that I didn't think I ever really needed until I got her in hand, and she might be, outside of movie figures, the best female figure I have in my collection. Yeah, absolutely. She is definitely the best female figure I have in my collection. Tons of sculpted detail, a lot of just stuff going on with the figure in general. Excellent sculpt, excellent paint, accessories, 2 really cool weapons, and then that humongous sword that she has. She has an interesting character history, and just the overall idea of her ending up in Marvel was cool. And then of course we got her as a figure, and she was one that everybody tried to track down, and I was included in that. I didn't even think I needed her, and then when I saw her, I absolutely had to get her, and here she is, number 3. Second place is going to go to yet another female figure, probably the best in my collection, especially movie versions. We have got the Hela figure from the Thor wave, so I don't think I'm alone in putting her in my top 10. Certainly not near the first spot. She is an amazing figure. The likeness for that second Cate Blanchett head is amazing. The overall paint and sculpt and design is just out of this world. And along with Yondu, she was one that really made me stop and think that I might actually want to get more movie figures, because they have really stepped their game up with the Thor waves, with the Guardian wave, and the Hela figure really showcases exactly what they can do and exactly where the new technology they're using is going to take Marvel Legends. And before we get to the number 1 spot, we're going to take a look at my favorite Build-A-Figure. So I didn't build all of them. I built Titus, and I built Man-Thing, and I built the Savage Hulk. But the one that really stuck out to me, not only because of the fact that it was a character that I have a fond memory of, but because it's actually a really cool design and has a lot of sculpted detail going on it, crazy paint scheme, that would be the X-Men Wave Warlock figure. I know that might be a surprise to some folks, but I really like this figure. It is humongous. It has an awesome design, a great aesthetic, and I'm a big fan of the character, so that always helps. Again, it's my favorite top 10, not necessarily the best figure. He has some QC issues. He's kind of got the wobbliness going on, but when I get him posed up on my shelf, he doesn't move. He looks great. I love the extra saw hand that he has, and I love pretty much everything about this Build-A-Figure. And coming in at number 1 is probably a figure that is no surprise If you have followed my previous kind of quarterly top 10s that I've done, which I'm probably going to be throwing out when I get to the end of the year's top 10 because it's been such a crazy year, but that goes to the X-Men Wave Shatterstar figure. And if that does come to as a surprise to you, I can honestly see why. This figure is probably one that kind of fell under the radar for a lot of folks that really don't care about being completists or, you know, just have a particular fondness for the character. I know he went on clearance and he was relatively easy to get a hold of for the most part, but this figure is one that when I heard was coming, I was 100% on board, and they executed him about as flawlessly as they possibly could. We have got two amazing swords. The likeness, I guess, comic likeness on the face is excellent. I would say uncanny, but that would be a little too punny, I guess. But the figure itself is just awesome. I've said it from the minute I got a hold of him that this was going to be one of my figures of the year, and it really comes down to just the fact that I love the character so much, and that's where we are. So Shatterstar, #1 figure for me for Marvel Legends, and there's a really good chance he's still going to show up on my overall top 10. I love the character and I love this figure that much. So yeah, that is my list for the year. Let me know what you guys think. I'm sure there are a few on this list that maybe leave you scratching your heads, but again, it's only figures that I bought and figures that I like, not necessarily just the figures that are technically great, but ones that I like to look at on my shelf, pick up and pose, and you know, that's what they're for. So that's why these are my top 10 Marvel Legends of 2017. Let me know what your guys' lists are down below, and come back for my top 10 Black Series figures of 2017 as well. See you later, everyone.